Hello everyone and welcome. Playwright is finally in core. We don't need to use Cypress anymore. It's a party. It's so exciting. I thought just like a guide and a quick overview of what's in the actual acceptance test project now would be in order, and how you'd go about contributing. So let's start with what's actually in the project now. We have a fixtures folder that contains some files. Well, what are these files? Well, we use them for testing. So we have some tests that uploads a file.txt. We have one that uploads a PNG image. So if you ever want to create a test that uses a file, the file goes here. We have a miscellaneous folder that contains a Docker file and a config file. Don't worry about them. They are purely for pipelines. So don't worry about them. I know I said that twice, but and then the infamous test folder. And you might go in here and think, why are there multiple test folders and why are they all called weird stuff? Well, we're actually working on spinning up Umbraco with different kind of configuration and testing those configurations so we can assert they work. There's a default config folder, and that's where I spend most of my time. That's where you spend most of your time if you're gonna contribute. And these are all the regular tests. So this will spin up after or for each PR. These default config tests will spin up. So what else? We have some files in the root. We have a config.js and a postinstall.js. These are script files. I'll show you what those do in a minute. We have a package.json file that contains our scripts. So to run all the tests, don't use this one. This will spin up, or this will run all the tests also with the multiple configurations, and we don't have a good way of spinning it up yet. So don't use it. And then we have npm run tests. We'll run all the tests normally, and then the npm run UI. This will run all the tests headed. We have a config file, and here we have specified our test directory, which is all the tests. Specify a timeout here. So this is if a test can't find an element while you're looking for it. This is what the timeout is defined. So here we said we wait 30 seconds if we can't find an element. And the same for expect. So if we are asserting on an element, we will wait up to 5 seconds. So if you want to change this, 30 seconds can be a bit slow if you're testing locally. You can bump it down. And then we have some retries. So locally we'll retry a lot of times. You can again bump this down when testing locally. And finally, a README file that takes you through what you need to actually run the tests. So let's try and follow it. Well, we need node.js installed. I already have it pre-installed. A running installed Umbraco. I already have it running, as you can see here. And then it should be installed using SQL Server or localDB, as the text execute a little too fast for SQLite to handle. There's a lot of writes, so test it with SQL Server. Make sure you run npm CI. So let's actually try that, npm CI. And now the scripts will kick in. So the config.js script will now kick in and prompt me to enter my superadmin email and my superadmin password. Very secret, you didn't hear that. And of course the URL, I already have it running on the default one, but if you didn't, now's the time to type it in. And it's specified run npx playwright install. Playwright install. And this does nothing for me because I already have it installed, but if you didn't, this would download some browsers that the Playwright would need. And now we're actually ready to execute tests. So we could run all the tests if we wanted to. I'm not going to, it takes a lot of time, but we could with the npm run test or npm run UI. But I thought instead that we'd go through how to create one, and that one we could run instead. So I've already cheated a little bit and created a test file. Not a complete test, but just a bare bones test file of what you need. So we need this import test because we're actually extending the tests. So we need this import to inject this Umbraco API and Umbraco UI and stuff into the test. So we need this import. This test.describe just describes your test file. Give it a name. We have called it demo test here, but you could call it, if it was content, just content or whatever. Then we define a before each, and this will run before each test. So even if the test retries, this will run again before each, and this just logs us into the back office. And these will be with the credentials you typed in. So you didn't see that password, but yeah, this will log us in with the credentials we typed in. So of course, there's only 2 tests right now in ours that don't use this before each, because and that's of course the login test where we can test we actually can log in. But so usually you'd need this, and that's why it's included here. Usually you'd need to log in a before each hook. We could also do it in the test itself, but that would be very tedious if we had to do it every time we had a test, if we had multiple, right? So that's why we do it in a before each. So we don't need this. And this is, well, our test. So we could have multiple, as I just showed you, tests. And this, this just defines our test, and we've given it a name called demo. Call this create member, if that was what we do, or create document type is what we're going to do, I think. Let's call it create document type. So let's actually create a document type and see how that would work in Playwright. So first we need a name. I like to save this in a constant because we're going to use it multiple times. So I'm just going to call it demo document type. And then how we do it in Playwright, and we actually used to do this in Cypress as well, is we use builders to build up the models, so we don't have to define our own JSON object and go into the back office and look at the requests and see how a JSON object is built for a document type. We've defined these in builders instead, so we don't have to remember it. So we need to import a builder, a document type builder. And this comes from the package Umbraco JSON models builders. And we have that dependency, of course, in our package.json. So let's use it. Let's create a document type with the new document type builder. And we can actually just do document type at .build. And that will create a document type model. I like to give it a name, sorry. So with name. So now create a document type, right? So let's actually run this. But we already have it here. I've cheated a little bit, and this now says /demo test. So this will only run in the demo test folder. Usually this script looks like this, and it will run all the default config tests. But I've added the demo test just so it only looks in this folder. And you might notice that this is named demo.spec.ts, and this is actually important. This is just not because I felt like it. If we remove the spec, and I try to run the npm run UI, you can see it does not find any tests. And if I add it back, just Control C, and now run it, finds my test, which is really nice. And then of course my test runs. So now we've created a document type, right? So let's look in the back office. Did we actually create a document? No, there's not any. I'm gonna refresh. No, there's not any. I'm gonna refresh again. How can that be? Well, we just created the model. We didn't actually save it. So we need to interact with the API to actually save the model. So good thing we have the Umbraco API injected here. So we await it in Playwright. These are async, so we await it. Umbraco API. If we want to save some content or data types or languages, we would of course use all this, but we want a document type. So document types, and then there's a .save. And then we just pass it in the document type we just built. So let's try and run that. Let's see how that works. That should go into the settings again. And now our document type is created. And let's say I wanna test this again. Can I do it? Pop quiz. Did you watch me and Nikolaj's acceptance test talk for Code Garden? It's on YouTube. Go watch it if you haven't. But what happens now? well, we get an exception. And that's because the document type already exists, so we cannot create it again. And we mentioned this in our Code Garden talk, but you always need to clean up after yourself. So we can do that with the API as well. You maybe saw it before when I had intelligence for this. There's an ensure name not exists. So this will delete any document type with the name you pass it. And that's why I saved it in a constant, because I knew we were going to use it again. And now this will delete the document type after each test, right? After I run it, it will delete it. But I still can run my test because it still exists, right? And that's why we actually do it defensively as well. So we also ensure it doesn't exist before we run the test. Because we could imagine a scenario where this test would run, but we throw an error here. So now we don't get to clean up after ourselves, and we would retry this test, and now that would fail because the document type already exists, and not because of some other thing. And this could maybe trickle down and fail some other tests. And this is why we also, in every test, we do it defensively as well. So before we run the test, we ensure it doesn't exist, and after the test, we ensure it doesn't exist. Okay, now we've created our document type. The test could be to just assert it's there. I know it's probably not a good use case, but just to show you how you'd go about using the UI. So we also have the UI helper, remember. So we could actually say Umbraco UI go to section and then pass it in constant, and we need a setting, right? We need a section alias. And you might think, okay, you just know that from memory, right? But actually, there's a constant helper I can use as well. So I could do constant helper dot sections dot settings, and now I don't need to know it from memory. And these are for, of course, all the sections, right? So let's throw in a await page dot pause, like it also said in the README when debugging, just to show you that the test actually does what I say it's gonna do, and I'm not just saying, yeah, it's gonna do that. Don't worry about it. Don't look though. So yeah, we created a document type, and we see it in the back office here, right? And we are in the settings section. So let's assert that it's there as well. And it's a little bit finicky in the back office, because this is defined as a tree item, right? Because when we go in here, there's actually no item, right? When we just go in here, we have to unfold this, and then, oh, there it is. So in Umbraco, it's a little bit finicky, but when we want to expect something, of course, this is just a playwright thing. We can expect something, and we need the import. My IDE just did it for me, but you would need the expect import if you want to expect something. And we want to expect the UI dot get tree item, because, as I said, this is a tree item. This one, right? Okay. So the way Umbraco tree item works is we need the tree name, which is the settings name. So we could do constants helper dot sections dot settings, right? And we need an array. And what array do we need? Well, we need to define the tree structure, right? So document types first, and then the demo document type. So write document types here, and then the name. And we can expect a whole bunch of things, but I'm just gonna assert that I expect it to be visible. Okay? So let's hope this works. So I'm gonna run the test again. And it passed. And as you can see, running it headed, you don't really get a lot of information from it, because yeah, I didn't see what happened. So it can help sometimes, but I would really do it if you do the await page to pause. And finally, you can of course use the Umbraco UI helper to get some defined Umbraco UI stuff. But let's say there wasn't an Umbraco UI helper to get some stuff for you. Well, what would you do? Well, we can actually do await page dot locator instead, and we would find some element, right? So this is how you'd go about finding any other element. So let's say, I know we already have. So let's say this one. Does it have a good one? Data element sections. So you can see the data element section content. So could I yoink this? Could probably yoink this. Where data element is equals to section content. Then of course these instead of. And let's do a await page dot pause just so we can see what is happening. That's not the right one. That is the right one. So now we actually get this Playwright inspector when we do page.pause, and we can step through, which is really, really nice for Playwright, where you can step through each step in your test, so you can actually see what's happening in the test slowly. And this couldn't find it, no source, but oh, it did find it. Okay, and we could maybe even click it just to really show that it does something. Yep, you see it finds the content section and then clicks it, right? Which is really nice. So I really like that that aspect of Playwright. Well, that was the overview of the acceptance tests. But you might ask yourself, well, what if I want to create a new Umbraco UI to click a section, for example, or I need a builder that doesn't exist yet. Let's say you needed a member builder that does exist, but let's say you needed one. What do you do? Do you just give up? Do you just hack it? No, you don't. We actually have 2 new repositories. And if I was professional, I would have them ready, but we have the Playwright test bus and the JSON models library. So this is for the builders. So if you needed to create, let's say, a member builder, you'd go to the Umbraco JSON models builders. It's open source, and hopefully the README will take you through how you'd go about creating a builder. Or else there's a problem. Please create an issue for it. And the same for the test helpers. So let's say you wanted a new extension method on the UI helper or anything, you'd go to the test helpers, or a new API member API to create a member. You'd go to the test helpers repo, and hopefully the README as well will take you through how to do that. So thanks for watching, and that was everything for me. I hope you enjoyed, and see ya.